The thing I mourn most about the mega commercialization of the computer games industry is that almost every game released every year through a major publisher is easily pigeonholed into one broadly defined and yet specifically defining category or another. After all, we can, having read in some cases a single word describing the game, and usually no more than 3 words, know in a very general sense and often a very specific sense what the game is, how it will play, and exactly what we might expect from it as an overall experience. Games and game-making techniques are getting better with every year. That much is simply undeniable. But something has, at least for me, been lost forever in and amongst the FPSs, the RTSs, the RPGs and the MMOs. The mystery, the magic, the not knowing exactly what to expect from a game before I've even looked at a screenshot or read an interview. But World of Goo, with its delightful, innovative and indescribably fun gameplay, has single-handedly restored my faith in the future of computer games. It deserves to stand beside, and perhaps even above, classics like Lemmings and Theme Park. The game's concept is like that of all great games, quite simple. So much so in fact that the only thing you need to be able to jump straight into the game is to know how to use a mouse. The goal with each level is to build a living structure to the level's exit out of a variety of different types of balls of goo, each of which may have unique properties or abilities, while ensuring there are enough goos left at the end to actually make it through the exit to meet the requirements of the level. The structure you're building is influenced by the laws of physics, and each level may have numerous dangers like chasms and circular saws, against which the goo's only defence is your own ingenuity. But while the concept is simple, the game is by no means lacking in depth or diversity. Each and every one of the game's almost 50 levels presents you with something new, whether it's a new type of goo with unique properties, a new way of using an old goo, or a new mixture of different types of goos presenting new challenges. Each level feels utterly unique, and each level is designed for somewhere between impressive and pure genius. Often after realising how a level is completed, I felt a mixture of pride and awe. The pride because I was able to overcome the challenges of the level, while the sense of awe came after the realisation that someone had actually thought up the design for that level and then polished it to absolute perfection. The puzzle starts simple enough. You'll begin by making basic towers and bridges with the generic black goos, but you'll soon be suspending structures across chasms with the floating balloon goos, creating something like a wall walker in reverse with the green goos, or setting off bombs by creating fuses using the flammable red goos. You'll solve many different types of puzzles throughout the game, but not once are you ever presented with more concepts than you can easily understand, or expected to be able to do something you haven't been taught during a previous level. But that's not to say the game is easy. The learning curve is simply a perfect shape. You'll never at any time feel frustrated, which is a pretty remarkable achievement considering trial and error is a fundamental aspect of gameplay. You'll rarely make it through most levels in a single attempt, and there are some genuine head scratchers, but the rules governing the game are so coherent and so consistent that even if you do get completely stuck, you won't feel as though the game is punishing you, nor will you ever feel like you're being handed anything on a plate when you breeze through a level. The balance is simply perfect. You can also go back in time by popping time bugs that flutter around the screen, so making a mistake or 3 won't necessarily mean restarting the level. And not only is the substance polished to perfection, the style is too. From the 2D Boy logo to the title screen replete with theme music reminiscent of something from a Tim Burton film, to the brief but always completely relevant messages that accompany each level name while the level is loading, World of Goo is overflowing with style. Although the goos themselves don't actually speak, they do have a personality of sorts. In what must be a deliberate nod to Lemmings, the goos are very communicative little creatures. They squeak when you pick them up, laugh with glee when you use them as part of a structure, and shriek when you drop them. Like everything else in the game, the sound effects are perfect, and if you're playing in a crowded room, you should quickly expect to find yourself playing with an audience. It may surprise you to hear that, even though it's very much a puzzle game, World of Goo tells a story, well, sort of. Carrying a message similar to, though far subtler than the Oddworld games, World of Goo has a strong anti-establishment theme, and it touches on subjects like the exploitation of and expendability of consumers and the potential security issues posed by companies collecting massive amounts of personal data. Simple cartoon-like cutscenes are sometimes used, but much of the game's themes are simply revealed through how the game presents itself. It's hardly subliminal, but it's subtle enough that you can completely miss it if you aren't paying attention, or ignore it if you simply aren't interested. The game costs a mere $20, which is about £11 in real money, and you can expect it to last about 6 hours for a single playthrough, but the game's 5-chapter campaign has a lot of replay value, in part because each level is so wonderful that they simply must be replayed over and over, but also because of the OCD flags. These OCD flags, that is, Obsessive Completion Distinction flags, are awarded to players who meet extra criteria in each level. They may be things like collecting very many more goos than is required to finish the level, or finishing the level in under a certain number of turns. The OCD flags are sort of like a self-imposed expert difficulty level. They offer a much greater challenge for those interested, but you're free to completely ignore them if you like. As well as the OCD flags, each level has a net-based leaderboard, so you can compete with other players. But far more interesting is the World of Goo Corporation metagame. Every goo you save in the regular single-player levels goes into a sort of goo bank in the World of Goo Corporation mode. The goal here is simply to make as tall a tower as you can out of your goos, while competing with other players from around the world. Provided you have an internet connection, their towers will show up for you as clouds, showing their username and the numerical height of their tower, while you'll show up similarly for them. It's sort of a massively single-player, online, goo-based tower building simulation or something. Even if you don't have a net connection, you can still compete with yourself, trying out different designs and figuring out how to get that tower just a little bit taller. There's something disturbingly addictive about this game mode. Every meter taller your tower grows is a great victory, while every collapsed tower and failed design is a learning experience, and a chance to improve, inspiring you to start again on a new tower straight away. You may be asking yourself, when is he going to say but and get to the criticisms? Well, I'm not. World of Goo is simply a flawless game. As with all games, there are ways it could be improved. There could be more levels, more types of goo, or perhaps even a level or goo editor. But all games can be more than they are. As far as the concept and the execution of that concept goes, World of Goo does not take a single wrong step. Any criticisms I might be able to come up with are utterly insignificant. And to put that in perspective, the developer 2D Boy consists of 2 people. Just 2. 2D Boy is an indie developer, but don't let that throw you off. These guys are industry veterans, and World of Goo is more than proof enough that they are masters of their trade. There are a lot of companies out there with over 100 employees who will spend 4 years on some huge budget game, and yet they almost definitely won't be able to make a game that is anywhere near as original, inventive, stylish, or simply as fun as 2D Boy has managed with World of Goo. The game uses big, bright, and often surreal images that, while simple, are extremely attractive, and 2D connoisseurs in particular will definitely get a thrill out of seeing such a beautiful game using only 2 dimensions. The game's graphics adhere to the never do the same thing twice philosophy too. Each chapter has its own look and theme, 4 of which are based on the year's seasons, while chapter 4 takes us inside a computer. Here we're treated to a delightfully quirky visual theme, and the game doesn't hold back on the nerdy jokes. Much like last year's Aquaria, another wonderful indie game, World of Goo proves that 2D is still hip. And the music is, if anything, even better. There are around 20 unique songs in the game, ranging from melancholic industrial and somber choral pieces, to the more upbeat and hum-toable stuff like the game's theme. It's such a pity that most of the game's songs are barely a minute long. With a little more length, the game's soundtrack alone would easily justify the game's price tag. Even if you aren't much of a music lover, it's hard not to be impressed by the broad musical selection. World of Goo is a game I want to take to every non-gamer, to every jaded cynic who says games aren't art, and to everyone who'll have 8 first-person shooters on their 9-game shopping list this winter, and say, this is how far we've come, this is what games can be. No matter what kind of games you like to play, or even if you don't play games, World of Goo is a game you simply must try. It is so long since a game has actually made me feel things, and you owe it to yourself to see if it can do the same for you.